Hi guys, this is a video comparing the Boss Micro BR to the Boss Micro BR-80. The Boss Micro BR came out around 2006, December of 2006. The Boss Micro BR-80 came out around 2011, 2012. Now, you might think at first glance, well, you definitely want to get the newer one. Well, the newer one's a lot more expensive. The older one can be picked up for a lot less, especially used on eBay. Buying it new, it's actually comparable in price, but it's a lot easier to find the older one on eBay and used sites and whatnot. Now, in addition to that, there are some features that are only available on the older unit. The newer unit has some new features and has a new interface, and by and large, for most people would be considered easier to use. However, having used them both, I can say honestly, if you learn a little bit, spend a little time in the manual, you'd actually be able to use either one of these. The first thing we're going to do is compare the differences in hardware between the two units. The dimensions are approximately the same in length and width. However, the Micro BR-80 is about 10% thicker than the Micro BR. Also, the Micro BR-80 weighs about 1.5 ounces more than the Micro BR. The Micro BR weighs in at about 8 ounces. The Micro BR-80 weighs in at about 10 ounces. In addition, the exterior shell of the BR is plastic, silver plastic. The exterior shell of the BR-80 is actually metal. These are metal plates that can be, if you were to take it apart, you would see that this is I think it's aluminum metal plate on the front and back, as well as a bumper that goes around the side. So it's slightly more durable. However, you can purchase a case very inexpensively for this unit, which actually, in a lot of ways, makes it far more durable than even this unit. It protects the unit pretty much all the way around and still gives you access to all the buttons. I've seen it on eBay for as low as $2 brand new. So you can see there's a single mic here, a mono mic, and then there are stereo mics here. In addition, there are little grates on both of these mics, so it actually does prevent breath noises better if you were to use it for vocals. Also, these buttons light up for play and record, which is a nice feature. You can still see them on the display on this unit, but they don't light up. The buttons do not light up here. Now you'll see that there's 4 buttons here for 4 different tracks. This is a 4-track, this is an 8-track. However, you still only get 4 buttons here. So you toggle between stereo 1 and 2, track 1 only, and track 2 only. It's fairly simple, but you do have to do this a couple of times, where over here you only have 4 tracks, so each one of these is dedicated. It would have been nice to have 8 buttons here, but I guess for space considerations they decided to just go with 4. In addition to that, on the BR-80, the SD card slot is accessible immediately, while on the BR, the SD card is actually inside of the battery compartment. If you put a large enough SD card, and both of these handle, I believe, up to 32 gigabytes. Now, they may not be compatible with every single card, but it's not too hard to find nowadays a good quality card that they'll both be compatible with. So when you have a card that large in there, you're not going to need to get at the card that often unless you're pulling files off of the unit, which you can do through the computer and the USB. However, on the cards, a lot of times it's easier to just pull the card out. The interesting thing about that battery cover is, here's the battery cover on the BR. Very easy to get off, and the batteries are very easy to take out. On the BR-80, they made the battery cover even easier to take off. It's fairly easy. It's almost too easy. You feel like you're going to lose it, but it's fine. But here's the interesting thing. Good luck getting the batteries out. I mean, I've tried with my nail on this particular battery. I can get this one out, but this battery is like very difficult to get out. I always find that I have to use a key or something to pull that battery out. And it's just a poor design. Now, you could probably, what they should have done is put one of those little straps in here to allow you to simply just pull on the strap and remove the battery. And that would be easy enough to add. I have some other videos that showing disassembly of this particular unit. So you could add something like that, fairly simple. It's not a showstopper, but it's kind of a strange design choice on their end. You'd think they would have noticed that that would be an issue. Speaking of battery life, the battery life on the BR-80 is significantly longer than the original Micro BR. The Micro BR gets about 2 hours of battery life. Okay, now that's on good alkalines or even moderately decent nickel metal hydride batteries. You're going to get about 2 hours on here. The weird thing is the battery indicator often depletes down to it looks like it's blank within an hour, but you still have another hour left. And it's something that's, I wish it was a little bit more accurate, but for the most part, if you're paying attention, it's fairly easy to know when you've pushed it pretty close to the limit. Okay, on this unit, it says that you can basically get up to 7 or 8 hours. On a brand new set of alkalines, like energizers, I'd say that's definitely true. But when you're using, say, some old nickel metal hydride rechargeables, I find that it might get twice as much as this unit, but not that much more. Now, if I had a brand new set of Eneloop rechargeable batteries, I think this would probably get the 7 to 8 hours on rechargeable batteries as well. But I can just tell you, on a pair of older rechargeable batteries, I find this maybe gets twice as much as this unit. Other physical differences. On this unit, you have a scroll wheel. As you noticed, I've modified my scroll wheel on this unit. I've added a little rubber foot. I glued it onto the top because I was finding it too hard to rotate this unit. You have to actually there's little tabbies, little bumps in here, and you have to kind of press down, and it's not good for the scroll wheel to do that. I actually have another video that shows you how to disassemble this unit to fix any issues that you have with this, because people often find that after a year or two of using this, they've either bent the pins inside or it starts to get dirty. So it's fairly easy to take this apart and clean it. And I go through that whole process, but I find that this will resolve a lot of issues because you tend to be grabbing it this way rather than pushing down in order to get a grip. So this scroll wheel is nice because it's nice to have a jog dial, as you know. However, it's a catch-22 because this is probably definitely the weakest link in the hardware chain of this unit. If anything's going to go, it's probably going to be this. On the other hand, these buttons are very solid, and all the buttons on here, and these buttons are actually a little bit more raised, so they're easier to get at. Some of these buttons are very slightly raised, and it can be kind of hard to feel them out when you're not looking, when you're not in bright situations, okay? When you can't really see your hands that well. You might be able to see the screen, but you might not be able to see your fingers that well, and sometimes it's easy to confuse which buttons are which because they're so slightly lifted. Especially over here, we have 4. This unit's a little bit more, you can get your bearings. It's almost like Braille. I mean, you can get your bearings by simply just rubbing your finger over it. You're like, oh, okay, these are the 4 here, I know which one's here, and then I drop down here and I know which ones these are, okay? So the only ones that aren't raised are these. These can be a little hard to find, but it seems these are actually a little raised better on this one. It's interesting. But anyway, now, what other physical differences do we have? Well, obviously the button layouts are slightly different because here you have the scroll wheel, so it changes your need for buttons. However, they did put buttons around here. There are 4 arrow buttons here. On this unit, you have increment and decrement, and over here you have basically left and right, because this display normally goes from left to right because of its depth. Actually, let's turn them both on so you can get an idea of that. This one has a 1 GB card, this one has a 2 GB card, so this one might take a slight longer time to initialize. I have used this with a 16 GB card, and it is a little bit longer. There might be 5 seconds more in startup time for a 16 GB card. Now, as you can see, you only get 2 lines of display here, and over here it's thicker, but this one is actually wider than that one. Okay. As you can see, this is more of a graphical user interface, and a lot of people do find this easier to use than this unit. However, this unit makes good use of this real estate. If you dive into the manual a little bit, it's pretty easy to understand this unit, and I have other videos describing how to use this unit and how to get the basic things that you need to understand in order to use it. There's really only a few concepts. Once you understand those concepts, this one becomes very easy to use, and actually in a lot of ways easier than this one. However, if you're not going to be opening the manual, you're not going to spend the time to familiarize yourself, and you want to like get in fast, and this one's probably quicker because it's graphical. But a lot of times there's more button presses involved here. Now, like I said, this one has a unique feature that, I don't know if you can see that, but this button lights up. And as well, the record button also lights up when it's armed. It's actually blinking right now. Okay, so that's a nice feature, especially when you're like in low light, you can see that these things are armed. But you also do, on this one, you will see little indicators here. So if I was to hit record, you can see there's a little record indicator right there. Even when I hit play, it'll go to another screen, but you'll still have the record indicator indicating, and there'll even be a play indicator. So the difference is not that great, but it is nice to have those lit buttons. Let's talk about the pros of this unit first. It's the newer unit, and you'd want to know, hey, what's better about this one? So I'll go through all those. This unit has better battery life, which we just covered. It has a more durable shell. It has a more intuitive graphic user interface. For example, like here if we're looking at effects, you can switch between effects and you can see different little graphics that kind of categorize it better. It makes it easier for some people to use. And like menus, you got full words here. On this unit, if you were to look at menus, you have little cryptic words. Okay, not that big of a deal because actually these align over the buttons. So this is just saying press song, press this button for song, press this button for track, press this button for undo. Okay, sometimes this unit's more work because if I wanted to do an undo on this unit, I would have to hit menu, I would have to arrow over to track edit, hit enter, and then I would have to arrow over or use the scroll dial to get to undo and then hit enter. Over here, all I do is utility, undo. Both of them only have one level of undo, but it's a feature you use fairly often, and it would have been nice to have a dedicated button for it, but at least this one, it's kind of quicker to get at. So sometimes this menu becomes a little bit more. Another example of this is watch. Say I wanted to change the input sensitivity of the microphone. So I'd have to hit menu, and then I'd have to scroll over to input sensitivity, hit enter, and now I can change the input sensitivity. On this unit, I have a dedicated button. I hit it, and I'm already at input sensitivity. And I can just modify it. Okay, so some things are quicker. Actually, a lot of things are quicker on this unit. However, on this unit, let's just say we're looking at the main screen here. You see your 8 tracks at the bottom. Now, down arrow, now you've got all your faders. Down arrow again, you've got your panning left and right. Down arrow again, you've got your solo buttons and your mute buttons. Down arrow again, and you have your equalizer. Now notice here with the down arrow, when I said down arrow on this one, I had to actually go down from solo track to mute section, then to equalizer. Now to get to the next screen, I have to go down 2 more times. And now I'm at the reverb section, and then down again, and I'm at the V-track section. Okay? So it's nice. The nice thing is when if I want to get all the way back up again, I just hit exit, and then I'm back at the main screen, so I can just go down. So it's kind of, that's a little trick to get around in that long interface. On this unit, when you wanted to do something like that, here's your main screen, and what you would do is you'd hit one of these tracks. And now you're looking at the track level for these 4. But instead of going down, you go across. So you go across the 4 of them, and now you're looking at track pan. Now if you want to jump to one of these, say I was at track pan and I want to modify the track pan of 2, I can just click on it and it jumps to that point right there. And now I can increment or decrement that. To go to the next section, I still have to arrow all the way past these 2 to get here, but if I needed to jump to the end, I could just, now I'm modifying this value on track 4. Okay, so my point is, this unit seems more complicated, but once you understand it, you can get around in it very quickly. This unit is easier to understand right out of the box. However, you're still going to have to do quite a few clicks to get where you want to go. There's no quick shortcuts. This one's full of shortcuts, and that can be confusing for people, but once you know them, it's fast. Now, on the plus sides, back to the plus sides of this, we've got the user interface is a little bit more intuitive, graphic user interface. Still mono, but you have little graphics and whatnot in there, and more letters and more descriptive. This one also has a harmonizer, a very nice feature. So you turn on this, go into effects, and I'm going to scroll down until I get to the harmonies. There we go, vocal harmonies. And I've got fifth harmony, third harmony, fifth plus double, third plus double, third plus fifth plus low, third plus fifth, double voice, triple voice, sixth voice. Then you've got pitch correct. And then chromatic, robot, some other basic vocal sound effects, rock, pop, voice percussion, whatnot. And now we're on to another section of the patches. So that's a nice feature. As far as I've seen, this unit doesn't have pitch correction even. And pitch correction is one of those features that sometimes works pretty good. It's like harmony. It depends on how you set it up. Harmonies can sound very fake if they're used subtly in certain places and you set the right keys and whatnot. They're a good feature, but it's honestly it's something, it's a positive definitely to have it. However, it isn't something that you just turn on and, hey, I've got harmonies, you know, or pitch correction. Hey, I've got pitch correction. With these type of units and even the BR-900, 1600 series, it requires a little bit of finesse to get them just the way you want. However, I'd have to say if you're more into vocals, this is definitely got some more vocal features with the harmonies and whatnot that are a lot of fun to play around with and very flexible. This one is still good for vocals, but you know, you got a mono mic, you don't have pitch correction, you don't have harmonies, but you do have other vocal effects. You know, your standard vocal effects. The robotic voice, the karaoke, the voice compression, delays, reverb, the basic effects. Okay, now, this one allows you to enter in a lot of situations longer names. So you can enter long names for your songs and whatnot. This one is usually limited to about 8 characters. However, oddly, this one allows you to easily enter upper and lowercase. You can take any letter and quickly change it to upper and lowercase. There's like a dedicated button. They assigned a button for one of that to upper and lowercase. With this one, you actually have to scroll out of the uppercase alphabet to go to the lowercase alphabet anytime you want to do that. It's kind of a pain. Don't know why they changed that, because on the BR series, the BR-1600, they also have a button that allows you to upper and lowercase. And the buttons are available here. They just didn't bother to assign one to upper and lowercase, which I find to be very strange. But anyway, this one has longer names, although you'll find you're using mostly uppercase. This one has shorter names, but upper and lowercase are a lot easier to access. Now this one, as we saw earlier, when you arrow down, you have the solo section. You can set any track to be solo. You can set any track to be muted. On this one, there is no concept of that. You can't just mute a track. What you can do is you can change the track level by arrowing down. You can even zero quickly. You have to arrow down all the way down to 0. Now that might seem like, oh, that's a pain. However, there's a shortcut here. You can just zip all the way over. It's not exactly that short, but you can just change the V track to an empty V track, and that is effectively muted out because there's nothing on that V track. I know that may not make sense to you if you aren't familiar with these units, but take it with a grain of salt that this doesn't have mute ability, but it isn't that hard to mute a track once you know how to use the unit. This unit has a newer Cosm chip, which is Boss's proprietary, I guess, effects chip. This one is newer. This is the older chip. To be honest with you, besides the harmonies and a couple of other things, they sound pretty much the same. So I think it's more, not so much a new, it's like a new chip, but it's probably based on most of the same logic of this one with some added features to it. So again, if you're into vocals, this might have more to offer you. If you're into guitar, they're both great, but this one might be a little bit quicker to get at some of the features, and it's a lot cheaper. There are a few more A/B options on here. When you select A and B, you when you set the A section and then you set the B section, actually a menu pops up, and there's a couple of different things you can do. With this one, it's very straightforward. It's just A, B, and it's looping there. I don't find that to be a huge thing, because most of the time when you're doing an A-B section, all you care about is A-B. Both of these allow you to punch in and punch out. This one's a little bit more intuitive about it. Okay, we're still going over the positives of this unit. One of the main features, advantages of this unit, is the fact that you have these 3 different modes. You have your basic MTR, which is multi-track recording, and then you have eBand mode, which allows you to play along with basically kind of like a band in a box. You load up a track and you can play along with it. Okay? You can record your output. Quick and dirty. So you can actually create some mix on the multi-track recorder, bounce it out or master it to a track, and then go here and play along with it. Just to, maybe you're doing a live performance and you just want to create some backup so that you can play along with it. So that's a nice feature. Live recording, this is nice because for a lot of people, you get this, the first thing you want to do is you want to plug in something and you want to record. You don't want to mess with all the menus, you don't want to do layering, you just want to actually record a track. Live record lets you do that. You go into live record and actually there's pretty much no other options. You hit record, play. That's pretty much it. You can go into the menu and do your basic menu stuff like change the LCD contrast and whatnot, but you're not going to be able to do most of the features that you would do on a multi-track because they're just not available in this mode. So it's, and you can see the display here is in time, and it's much bigger, so you can see it. You get your levels right here. So they set up the screen specifically for a live recording mode, which is actually very nice. It's a nice feature. It's not available on here. Another advantage of this unit is it's much newer, so you might see more firmware upgrades on this unit. Chances are, I don't think Boss is even bothering to do any firmware upgrades on this unit anymore. Not that they really need to. I can't find too many things that they could fix on it besides maybe being able to zero out or mute tracks in some way through some button combination. Okay, another nice feature of this unit is, say that you've put a song on here or copied a song onto this device from an MP3 and you want to learn that song. A couple of things you can do in this sort of eBand mode is you can change the speed of the unit, speed of the song, so you can make the song faster or slower so you can learn it, and it doesn't change the pitch, which is very nice. Alternatively, you can change the pitch without changing the speed. Now it does sound a little weird when you do this, either one of these two things, but it's just a nice feature for training yourself to be able to play a song. You can also change both of them. That's not a problem either. Another thing that you can do is you can do a center cancel, so you can cancel out the vocals or anything that might be in the center. If you can find it through which position it is panned left and right and what the frequency is and then the depth, you can get the vocals to be much, much softer. I've not been able to find being able to remove them completely. They'd have to be like dead center to be able to remove completely, but for the least you can get them lowered, or you can take out any instrument that you can locate through a frequency or through a position in the left and right panning. That's a nice feature as well. Now on this unit, it has, I've neglected to mention this, there is actually a mode similar to eBand mode on this unit. This is called MP3 mode. It's got a dedicated button actually, and you hit it once, and now you're in MP3 mode. You can actually use this as an MP3 player, which is kind of nice, although that'd be somewhat limited by the display. However, if you see here, you have the percentage, so you can change the speed of the song, and this will not change the pitch, it'll just change the speed, which is nice. If you arrow over, you can cancel the center. You can even edit the parameters of that so that you can modify the center adjustment and the low boost. Okay, but that's it. Those are the two options that you have here. You don't have the pitch modification on this unit, just center cancel and speed changes. This one you also get pitch change, which is it's a nice addition. Obviously, another advantage of this, you have 8 tracks instead of 4. So let me just show you that I mentioned this earlier. There are only 4 track buttons, but you do get 8 tracks. So if you wanted to arm, let's say, track 1, I hit this once, and it's going to come up to track 1, 2 as a pair. right? If you hit it, it just automatically disappears. If you hit it, see, track 1, 2. But if I tap it twice, I'm on track 1. If I bring it up again, it goes to track 2 1, 2 automatically. So then I hit it again, and it goes to track 2. So it's just a toggle. Tap it once, you get both tracks in stereo. Tap it twice, you get track 1. Tap it 3 times, you get track 2. And the same is true for the next button over. Tap it once, you get stereo track 3, 4. Tap it twice, you get track 3. Tap it 3 times, you get track 4. And that's how you switch between these. Also, if you wanted to see how these are linked, if you want to unlink them on the fader view, you just hit enter and it unlocks the two. Or you can put them together as a stereo track by just hitting enter again. Okay? So you do get 8 tracks here, as well as rhythm. This one you get 4 tracks, as well as rhythm. On both of these units, it's kind of nice. When you're bouncing, you don't have to reserve empty tracks for that. So if all these tracks are full, you're using all 4 tracks here. When you bounce, you can actually bounce to another V track, as long as you have open V tracks. So you can actually record all 4, and then you're bouncing to a separate kind of virtual track. On this one, you get 8 plus rhythm. Well, actually, this one, I should say 4 plus rhythm. And you can bounce that to a virtual track. This one, you get 8 tracks plus rhythm, and you can bounce all that to a virtual track. So you really do get 8 tracks here plus a rhythm track. So it's like 9 tracks. This one, you get 4 tracks plus a rhythm track. 5 tracks. And you don't have to reserve anything for the bouncing, nor for the mastering. Interesting part about this one is that when you master here, you actually can master to a V track. On this one, when you master, it automatically masters to a file. Always goes directly to a file. There's no way to like say, well, master to a V track. It's an interesting assumption they're making there. Okay, I think we've covered all the major positives of this unit. Now here's the pros of this unit. And this is the number one pro, in my opinion, is this. On this unit, you can record dry vocals or dry guitar and then apply whatever patch you want onto it. You can insert effect on top of a dry. Okay? You can even record a track, record it as dry, hear it on the monitor, on the headphones, hear it as wet. You know, whatever you set its effect to, grunge or crunch or whatever. You will hear it, but it's actually recording dry. And then you can change it by applying a new effect to it and record that as another track. That's really cool. On this one, like a lot of 8 tracks, you assign an effect to the guitar or to the vocals, and that's what you get. It records wet, and that's it. There's no reprocessing of it. Best of my knowledge, I have not found one way to do that on this unit. It's not a feature you're going to want all the time, but it's really nice to be able to say, especially you know, when you're not sure which guitar sound you want. You know what it's going to sound like in the beginning, but then it changes in the middle, and maybe you want 2 different guitar sounds. Okay, guitar effects for one passage that you're going to play. This one allows you to do that. I mean, you can record it dry, overdub it with one effect on, put it on one track, overdub it with another effect, put it on the other track, and then mix those two, whichever way you want. On here, what you pick is what you get. And it's really odd because for vocals, it's the same thing. If you wanted to do a harmony, you can't, you have to do, like turn on harmony, a harmony effect. You're going to do the harmony effect for the entire recording of that unit, of that session. Where a lot of times you only want harmony in one small part. So harmony is a specific thing that you would want to apply to just part of a track, not the whole thing. And you may not want to have to sing it 2 or 3 times. And maybe you want 2 different types of harmony, but you don't want to re-sing it because, you know, you want to keep those harmonies tight. When you re-sing it, there's going to be slight variances in the way you sing it the first time versus the second time. And if you're trying to do some really complex layering of harmony, you really want to start with the same take, dry take, and apply harmonies. You can't do it on this unit. Very strange. So I don't know why they took that feature out. It is an awesome, awesome feature in my opinion that this gives you and this doesn't. Are you going to use it all the time? No. But it's nice to have, especially when you're learning this unit and you're trying to get used to all of the effects. You can just play a passage and you can just try all the different guitar sounds. You can say, hey, you know, I recorded this clean. I wonder what it'd sound like if I threw it with a, you know, really dirty, grungy sound on it. And instead of having to play it again, the whole thing, you just spin the dial and you can just sample a demo a certain section of your song and see whether it sounds better with a different guitar sound. And if you like it, you can actually bounce it. So I don't know what Boss was thinking when they dropped that, because it seems to me, from a programmatic standpoint, it would be fairly easy to allow you to record dry and then pump it through the effects system after, as opposed to always putting the effects right in the way of the input. Okay, so that's a pro of this unit. Another pro of this unit, more mastering options. This has basically, in my opinion, more or less the same mastering options that you would see on a BR-900. Here, you get all the same, more or less the same ones that you get here. You have dance mix, jingle mix, hard compression, soft compression, on and on and on, okay? But now look at the parameters. If I hit enter, these are the parameters I get. I can edit, I get dynamics, tone, and natural. That's it. Over here, if I edit, I get input gain, compression, I get mix, okay, and these all have parameters. Mix, mid, up, down. I can change the EQ of this mix, right? The limiter, I can change how the limiter works, and I can change the output level, okay? This unit has, I think, more flexible mastering. It's nice. This is an interesting idea with the dynamics, the tone, and the natural, and they have an effect on the output. But for most people, you're going to want to use, you're going to be more familiar. I think most mixers are going to be more familiar with the options that you have here. Your compression level, your mix, you know, your equalization, your limit, right? And your output level. This one has output level too, but dynamics, tone, natural. Not exactly sure why they went with that. Okay, another advantage of this unit is very simple file system. When you master a track or you export, it goes right at the top level of the SD card file, the SD card's file system. It's like right there. If you want to import an MP3, you put your SD card in your computer, copy the MP3 onto the root level of the SD card, you know, the SD card's file system, and you can access it right here. Okay, this one, it's buried. Both of them are buried. If you export, it's inside of a subdirectory under Roland called masters. That's pretty obvious. But when you want to import, you can't just import it by dropping it into the top level. You have to import it into, I can't remember the directory right off the top of my head, but there's a subdirectory that you have to put it in that subdirectory in order to import it into a track. It's just not intuitive. You can always do both of these by plugging them in to the computer with a cord, but I always find taking the SD card and moving it back and forth is a lot easier. And it's funny that they made the SD card so accessible, but then they kind of convoluted the file system so that you can't get to it. Both of these units, when you master on this unit, you automatically get an MP3 or a WAV, which is nice. On this unit, when you master, it goes to a V track. And then you can export that V track to an MP3 or WAV, and it does it on the unit. You can do it through the software by connecting it, but it's an extra step here, which is fine actually, because a lot of times you may not want that master. You just want it on the unit. You don't really want it as a separate file. And then when you do want it as a separate file, you just say go ahead and convert it. And it does it on this. It takes a couple minutes, but honestly, I don't find that all that often that I need the feature too often. Even when I want to take a master of everything, it's fairly straightforward to do. On this one, it's nice because it automatically puts it out to a file. But if you wanted to work with that file again, it's not on a V-track, so you have to re-import it into this. Okay? With this one, it's already on a V-track, so if you want to do something to the master, affect it in some way, which you can by piping it through the whole effects system again on this unit, which is kind of cool. Not that you'd necessarily want to be able to want to do that with a mastered track, but you could. So that's kind of nice. As I covered earlier, this one has faster access to undo. It's really just like 2 buttons. This one you got to dig into the menus a little bit more. The downside to this one is it's a little bit harder to learn this. There's a few things you have to understand on using this. Mostly it's that these options here, they're a little cryptic. There's only a couple letters for each one, but they correspond to the button underneath. Once you understand that, it gets a lot easier. I mean, you know, I just hit utility. Okay, I want to do something with my song. I press the song button. Again, song. Oh, I want to change something with the track. I press the button under the track button. I want to copy, so then I press the button under copy. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know why people find it to be difficult, but some people do. As I said, one nice feature about this is you can get a nice leather case for it. The snap simply covers the power adapter port, so that's not usually a big deal. And you have access to all the buttons. It's really not hard to reach the buttons. They're not like, oh, they're right up against the side. Now they're fairly easy to reach. They're definitely, you know, you're on the edge on some of them, but not that close. And I like this because one of the things I like to do is when I'm going to be experimenting, because this case has this nice extra feature that I take my headphones, I roll them up, and I put them on this snap. Just feed them right over the snap, like that. Snap it closed, and it's ready to go. Because neither one of these units has a speaker, so you're going to need headphones. And that makes sense, because having a speaker on a multi-track kind of gets a little pointless, because you're going to be getting the speaker sounds into the next track if you're using the internal microphone. So a lot of times you're going to be needing headphones, and this is a nice part of this is that you get the way to hold your headphones. You could also put them on this, I guess. So you get this little clip here, and on the back, it's literally big enough of a strap to connect it to a neck of a guitar. I don't know why you do that, but you could attach it to a microphone stand or something. So it's nice. It's not just a belt loop. It's actually, it's flattened. It can be flattened enough to be a belt loop, but it can also be attached to a lot of different things. That's a nice feature of this. I mean, it's nice that it's available. I have not seen a case for this. There are no cases. Now, could you modify this case to fit this? Yeah, you could, but you'd have to cut a lot out of it, because these buttons are so low to the edge that they get interference from here. Okay. Plus, well, if you have this thing, this little nub like I have, it's going to be hard to put it in here without hitting the edge of that. So, okay. So anyway, we just covered this case. It's a very nice case. Like I said, $2 on eBay, $7 or everywhere else that I've seen. So those are pretty much the advantages of this unit over this unit. There is one disadvantage of this unit I forgot to mention. It's only a slight disadvantage, but most of the time signatures on this thing, actually all the time signatures on this unit for the rhythm are 4/4. Most of the time signatures on this unit are also 4/4, but there are some additional ones. Okay, they're not all 4/4, but most of them are. So they added a few other ones. But for the most part, if you do a lot of different time signatures, you might find neither one of these is going to be that awesome as far as different time signatures. At least in this one, you get a couple of options. This one, you don't. It's pretty much all 4/4. They both have metronomes. They both have tuners. There's a switch on the back of both of these, and they're slightly different. The switch on the back of the original Micro BR is a protect switch that basically turns off all the buttons on the front. And that can actually get confusing, because if you turn that off, you can't even turn it on. If it's off and you lock it, you can't even turn it on. It's kind of interesting. This one, the switch on the back, is here, and it is just a switch between mic or guitar input. Okay. Beyond that, all the side buttons are pretty much the same. They might be moved slightly, but they're all the same. You have your input level here, your line in, your guitar in, and then on this side you've got your volume control, your AC adapter control, your micro USB, and your headphone jack. So those are all similar. There's nothing on the back of this. All your inputs are on the sides. And as you can see, this one keeps going off because I have it set for a short amount of time to turn off because its battery life is relatively short. So to save battery, I just have it set to shut itself off. You can also adjust the brightness of the LCD on both of these, and that is definitely a battery saver. It will help. So you should make it as dim as you can, and it will save some battery life there. Both of these, I believe, have plug-in power. They don't have phantom power, but they do have plug-in power, which I think is 2.5 volts. I don't have a plug-in microphone, so I couldn't tell you how prevalent that is or how useful that is. But and phantom power, these things run on 2 AA batteries, so I can't imagine phantom power would be a good idea anyway. Both of them do have an AC adapter slot, so you can run them on an AC adapter, although I find, you know, if you're going to have a portable unit, kind of the point of the portability is to not have wires all over it. However, you're going to use it with an electric guitar, you're going to have wires on it anyway, although albeit one. Both these units are very good when you're experimenting with vocals. This one, especially for vocals, because you've got the pitch correction, you've also got the harmony. But both of these units are really cool for experimenting with vocals and learning vocals over songs, because besides a headphone, that's it. That's all you need is headphones and the internal mic, and you can mess around with vocals. With guitar, of course, you got to plug it in, and that adds a whole nother. And for guitars, these are both excellent because you've got rhythm tracks, you've got tons of guitar tracks on both of these units. This one, you got the ability to record dry and then add your effects. This one, you kind of set and forget kind of thing. You set them up, and that's what you get. So I'd say for guitar, this one is actually in a lot of ways cooler. Big difference between these two, much cheaper. It's 10 years older. That's kind of why, but it's still very, very cool unit. A little bit harder to learn. This one's easier to learn. On average, you're going to pay twice as much for this, if not 3 times as much for this in the used market. Brand new, they're almost comparable in price, but in the used market, you can find many of these for, I don't know, $50, $75. This one, you'd be lucky to find about $150 for this one used. And again, you got to be worried about how well this wheel was taken care of. But check out my other videos if you have one, that if you end up getting one and you have a problem with this wheel, check out my other video about how you can disassemble this unit and fix this up. It's not really, really difficult. You need a small set of screwdrivers. Bring your patience with you, and a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol, and you can clean this unit up to a point where I believe, you know, unless it's severely damaged, you should be able to bring it right back. Usually what it is dirty contacts in there, or bent pins that can be bent back. So this one is a really good unit to get when you want to experiment and you want to see what these things have to offer. If somebody was looking at this cold, I'd say get this unit first. If you have this unit and you need the features that are additional on here, you want a simpler interface, or you need 8 tracks or something, then yeah, this unit's good to go. But if you're not sure what your commitment level is, both of these, if you play guitar, both of these will get you to pick the guitar up. If you're into vocals, both of these will get you to record ideas more. These are definitely very handy units. So I don't think you can really go wrong with either one of them. It's just a question of what are your needs, what's your commitment level as far as how much money you want to put towards these units at this point, and the rest is pretty straightforward. I mean, if you have a Boss BR-900 or a Boss BR-1600, or any of those, these will be easier to understand because they're based on the same basic user interface designs. Matter of fact, this one is very similar to a Boss BR-900. Once you get past the acronyms, everything's a little bit shortened in words, but this is very similar. And this one is also similar, it's just got more of a user interface to it. I might say this is more similar to like maybe a Boss 1600, somewhat. But either way, if you've used any of the Boss BR series, these will be similar. And you should be up and running fairly quickly. The manuals and software and drivers are all available at Boss. You can connect these to a PC. You don't have to. I think you might need to for a firmware upgrade, although I think you could probably get around it. I didn't bother. I just did the connection to the PC thing for upgrading the firmware, but I'd be willing to bet you could probably just copy the files on and upgrade the firmware directly on either one of these by using the SD card, but I don't know that for certain because they didn't give you any instructions to do it that way. And they've got software for both Mac and Windows, all the different versions of Mac going back quite a bit, all the way back to I think Mac OS 4, 10.4, all the way up to 10.10 or 11, whatever it's at now. The Windows version for the drivers for both of these goes back to Windows XP and all the way up to Windows 8.1, and I'm sure they'll have a driver for 10, at least for this unit. Again, it's hard to say how far they'll support into this unit, but these are so similar that I would hope that drivers would be similar between these two. So as they keep updating the drivers for this unit, you'll get them for this one as well. Like I said, all this stuff is available at Boss's site, so do go down, if you get one of these and you don't get the manual, download the manual for free and print it out. It's nicer to have the manual because they're smaller. When you print them out on 8.5 by 11, it's a pretty big manual, but this is a smaller, much smaller manual than 8.5 by 11. It's a little bit more pocketable. Okay, so having the actual real manual is a nice thing, but by all means you don't need it. Well, that pretty much wraps up the comparison of these two devices. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below and I will do my best to try to answer them. Also, if you get a chance, check out my other videos and please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.